Just Baseball's free agency prediction extravaganza. Jack and Peter, this is going to be awesome. I think we have 16 names written down that we've got ideal landing spots for. Each of us have a team. Peter has a year and total money,
Mhm.
and I will either agree or refute that number. It is Wednesday, November 6th, 2024. Obviously, we got to talk about the most important thing in America on Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. And that's the possibility of Roki Sasaki being posted. That was the biggest thing yesterday. Peter, who we brought to you by?
BetMGM, the king of sports books. Remember, folks, download BetMGM, whether it be on iOS or Android, and use promo code JustBaseball. Why? First bet offer up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if it were to lose. So you download BetMGM, use promo code JustBaseball, deposit at least $10, and if you place a wager and it were to lose, you'll get whatever you put on it up to $1,500 back in bonus bets. And if you win, congratulations, you won a bet. But remember, gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 years or older. Terms and conditions apply. I agree, Jack. The most monumental decision, Roki Sasaki, whether he's coming over or not.
So there was something that was kind of sort of reported by Kylie McDaniel at ESPN. He
Yeah.
said that there are, quote, indications pointing towards Roki Sasaki possibly being posted by his team in NPB, the Chiba Lotte Marines, this offseason. I know that they were talking about contracts like an extension through when he would typically be posted, to come get that bag, a la Yoshinobu Yamamoto, a la, some other of these big ticket free agent signings. Typically, they stay in Nippon professional baseball until they can be posted to sign for as much money as you possibly can. Roki Sasaki is the teenage wonder kid who is now, I believe, 22 years old.
23.
23 years old.
He's going to be
Sasaki,
23.
got you. Sasaki took baseball and the baseball world by storm a couple years ago when he was 20-year-old kid throwing 100, 102, crazy split. Comes over, it looks awesome in the World Baseball Classic. And then he was dealing with some injuries at the beginning of this year. The numbers were not as dominant as they were previously, but Roki Sasaki is as highly regarded a pitcher coming over from Japan as anybody in the last decade or so. Obviously, there was a ton of publicity about Yamamoto. I think Yamamoto and Sasaki are on a similar playing field. I think Tanaka was on that playing field. I think Yu Darvish was on that playing field. So we're talking about a guy that is going to command a ton of money if he stays in Japan and comes over when he should be traditionally posted. However, there is an opportunity, as Kylie McDaniel reported, for Roki Sasaki to come over and essentially do the Otani thing, where he sort of kind of goes through arbitration
Yep.
stateside, and teams can sign him using their IFA money.
Mm-hmm.
It's a unique situation. I've seen some refuting reports from people that are more in touch with Nippon professional baseball that said Chiba Lotte really doesn't have much incentive to post Roki Sasaki.
Yeah.
We need a lot more clarity on this, but the fact that the report did come from Kylie that it was a strong possibility. Obviously, the Dodgers are a very heavy favorite to blow their IFA budget on Roki Sasaki. This could be a big deal.
It could be a huge deal. The thing is, and I don't want to dampen anybody's party, I just don't think he's going to come over until he's 25.
Right.
And a big reason why is, first of all, if you're the Marines in the MPB, why would you want to let a guy like this go? Aren't you going to spend as much money as humanly possible to keep him on your team until he's 25 and then you give him his wishes that he wants to come over to Major League Baseball? And if we remember, we had the same conversation, not quite to this level because now it's happened consecutive times, but last year he did a very similar thing with his contract and started to start rumors about him coming over to Major League Baseball. So he's basically doing the same thing again, but the Marines in the MPB are still incentivized to keep this freakazoid on their team for as long as possible. And for, a guy like Roki Sasaki, do you want to make as much money as humanly possible? I think that really goes into the bucket of stay in the MPB for the next 2 years and then make the Yamamoto deal where you get 12 years at
Right.
$325 million, something like that. That makes the most sense to me. But what I will say is, if it is true and he is posted, we have the number one pitching prospect coming over to Major League Baseball. And the reason I call him the number one pitching prospect is that's how he should be viewed. He's still a very, very young pitcher, right? Very similar age to a Paul Skeens, who just had his rookie year this year, right? I'm very excited for Arm to break down the differences between him and Jackson Jobe. And I think you probably agree too, that Roki Sasaki is probably a more exciting prospect than a Jackson Jobe.
So it's weird because Sasaki was dealing with arm issues or injury issues for the first month or two.
Isn't that just kind of being a pitcher?
The fact that it happened this year is just a little concerning because Yamamoto, like, he did not have those. So there's no hindrance there. And the pitch shapes and the pitch velocities looked a little bit different this year than they did in 2023. And you look at Roki Sasaki's career numbers. This guy made his NPB debut in his age 19 season. By the way, happy belated birthday. He's 23 years and 2 days old. So I was right about the 22 thing, but you were right about the 23 thing.
Actually, we were both wrong. Technically, because you said he was 22 and I said he's turning 23. He did turn 23 2 days ago. We were both wrong.
I was framing it as we were both right, but you're framing it as we were both wrong. And that's the right way to do it. I was just like letting my ego get in the way there. But in Roki Sasaki's NPB career, he's thrown 394 innings across 4 seasons. He's got a 2.10 ERA. This guy is punching out 11.5 per 9. He's walking 2 per 9. Now, what I will say is he had a 1.78 ERA in 2023. He had a 2.35 ERA in 2024. The hits, like, batting average against was up. Ks were down from 13.5 to 10.5. Walks were up a little bit. So, I think that's health related. I don't think that's, they're learning Roki Sasaki, because a fully healthy Roki Sasaki, we saw what that looked like in the 2023 World Baseball Classic. That was a sight to behold. Yamamoto was amazing. Yamamoto was jaw dropping.
Yeah.
Sasaki, with the allure that he had at a younger age, I was more impressed with that.
Blowing 102 by Randy. We posted that video on our Instagram of that clip from the WBC. You see how late Randy is. A good fastball hitter. Kind of expecting a fastball to come and just getting blown away. I mean, it's pure fuel. And if that comes over and that arm is healthy, we got another phenom in our midst. And that's what's so exciting about it. But to your point, maybe calm the expectations a little bit just off his most previous season, where he didn't look quite as electric. He's still fantastic. He would still get a boatload of money if he ever came over, but temper the expectations just slightly, right? Because I'm already really excited.
I would also temper the expectations on him being an LA Dodger in 2025.
Yeah, like, I just don't think he's coming.
I know that the American reports are that, it seems possible and, maybe borderline likely based on who you read, that he could be coming over. I'm just saying, like, pump the brakes on that. We'll know for sure. I think December 15 is the posting date for NPB players.
That makes sense.
Give us a month, give us 5 weeks, and we'll have much more clarity on the Roki Sasaki situation. But now time for the free agency extravaganza. Arm Layton popped on to wish our phenomenal editor at justbaseball.com, Eric Truden, his son Ledger, a happy 4th birthday. So we recorded that, and you shot him a text after the fact. Do you want any predictions you love thrown into this episode? I was thinking he was going to give us like 2 or 3.
I know he gave us all of them.
He gave us 16. He gave us every guy. So I'll run through who he's got as well, what team he's going to. The way we're going to do this is all 3 of us are going to pick a team that we feel like is the best fit for 16 notable free agents.
Mm-hmm.
And Peter devised a year, like, length of contract and total money of contract. And I will either agree or push back on those numbers.
And I also want to remind everybody listening, there is no exact science to these predictions, right? We're looking for a good fit. There's going to be multiple teams. So I'm sure in the YouTube comments below, you're going to say, well, that fit actually lines up for my team. And here's why. I couldn't agree with you more. In terms of the money, these are guesses, right? I've looked at a bunch of different sources. I've spoken with some people, in the industry that may know a little bit more than me to come to the best guess. But at the end of the day, this is a guess. You're going to hear a lot of, if you're a big baseball podcast listener, you're going to hear a lot of shows going over what they think that these deals are going to look like in which team, and they're going to present it as fact. Nobody can present it as fact. We can present it as educated guesses to point you in a direction of where we think a player might land. But as you can tell from our previous free agency predictions, it's hard to get a lot of them right. It's hard to get some of them right. And that's where most people are coming from. We're coming from the sense of we're trying to gather all the information, give it to you, and that's it. That's really all we're trying to do. We're not trying to be perfectly right, just information for you to listen to make even your own predictions. So let us know in the YouTube comments below.
I love it. All right, let's start with the biggest fish that we have out there. That is Mr. Juan Soto. Juan Soto had one of the best seasons that we've seen in a very long time with the New York Yankees. Problem is Aaron Judge trumped him in terms of overall production. But we saw as good a 1-2 punch, and you walk through it historically, as good a 1-2 punch as we've seen in baseball history, right? Like you got to go back to literally Ruth and Gehrig for some of these comps when it comes to tandems. Juan Soto, where's he going?
I think Juan Soto is going to be a Yankee. And I know I'm a Yankee fan. Here's my thinking here. The Yankees, when it really comes down to it, they end up always spending a little bit more for the guys that they know that they need. Right? This isn't the same Yankees that will throw money at anybody. But for the guys they need, they still operate like the Yankees. I'll take you back to the winter meetings where we were there in San Diego. And all we're hearing about is Arson Judge to the Giants or Aaron Judge to the Padres. And then Hal Steinbrenner in Italy calls up Aaron Judge at the final hour and says, what's it going to take? Judge gave him the offer. He said yes. Garrett Cole, that was the guy that the Yankees had to have. We saw these negotiations. The Yankees kind of called Scott Boris's bluff, but ended up Garrett Cole wanting to stay, Yankees wanting him, and they're going to work something out. Juan Soto falls into that bucket. So if a team like the Mets comes out and says, we're going to blow everybody away by way more, then he's going to go to the Mets.
Yeah.
Like, that's just the bottom line. If the Los Angeles Dodgers say, we're going to pay more than everybody else, the Los Angeles Dodgers will get him. But if it's competitive, I think there is an element of Juan Soto watching the Dodgers win a World Series in Yankee Stadium where he's sitting there in the dugout and saying, I want to win a World Series with this team. And if the offers are comparable, I am going to stay. Did seem like he loved being there. Seemed like he loved New York. Everything was positive out of their camp. And it's going to come down to the money. But I think of all things, between those three juggernauts are equal, the Yankees will get him. And I calculated the contract, and it's wild. It's wild. And it should be wild for a guy who's on a Mickey Mantle type track where he's going to be 26 years old in the first year of this contract. What's 40 minus 26? It's 14 years.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I came to the conclusion. I think that Juan Soto will want to sign a contract into his age 40 season.
Yeah.
And how much per? Probably $45 million per.
Okay.
So I landed on 14 years. I think, I landed on 14 years, $630 million to the New York Yankees.
Okay, so I have the Yankees. Arm has the Yankees as well. Let's get that out of the way. I do think that it's going to come down to bidding war, and I don't think that a team is going to say, we're giving you $700 million, and the Yankees are not going to counter. I think if that number is in the low sixes, the Yankees say, okay, we match that,
yes,
and I'm with you. Like, all things created equal, relatively speaking, you know, if he's taking $15 million less from the New York Yankees over 14 years, like, I do think that there is an element of wanting to stay with the Yankees because you knew that you enjoyed your time there so much. I think that's a ton of money.
I do too.
I
It's
think
a
that's
fuck ton of money.
Yeah,
like it's so much money. I can't even believe that I wrote it down.
It's a ton of money. The highest AAV ever given was across 2+1 deal for Scherzer and Verlander, which is 43.
43.333, whatever.
So the only number that I'm married to is 14 years because I do think that there are some pillars. I think that Scott Boras has some pillars here. He has some checkpoints that this contract is going to need to fit into, and Juan Soto seems to align with those based on what he was saying after elimination, based on everything that I've read at this point. I think he wants to get paid until he has a 4 at the front of his age, and I think that's 14 years. And I think Juan Soto wants his total money starting with a 6.
Yep.
So I just went round numbers. If he makes $42.9 million over the next 14 years, that's 14 years for 600 million. I think he might just sign 600 even.
Boris ain't letting another player out there have a higher AAV than Soto. I cannot see it happening.
But
Boris,
it's
the competitive guy,
years.
Soto,
Like
competitive.
Scherzer's a 2-year.
I
Verlander
know.
was a 2-year. Like,
But these two guys getting together, Boris and Soto. I mean, Soto's the ultimate competitor too in the box.
yeah.
They're going to want that 45. That's why I went up there. I was looking at the Scherzer deal, thinking to myself, there is no freaking way Juan Soto takes less. The only way, and this was something that I wanted to kind of float by you, I don't think it's going to happen, but I'd be curious if Juan Soto has ever considered something like this. A 6-year, $300 million deal. 50 million per over 6 years, going shorter on the deal and then re-entering free agency at 31 and potentially asking for a 10-year, $500 million deal at that point. I know it sounds crazy. Who would then give him 10 years, 500 at age 31? Well, what I expect from Juan Soto is age 26 to 31, be a 5-year stretch that is only rivaled by the top 10 players in Major League history. So after he does that, and with contracts continually going up and up and up every single year, by he's 31 years old, could he be locked into $50 million a year again at 10 years? But at the time, maybe there was someone else who signed 52, or there is someone else who signed 54. I thought of a way that maybe he'd go about it a different way. I don't think this is going to happen, but because this is a contract that lacks precedent in really any sport, I wanted to come up with a couple of new ways that I think he could sign. But again, I don't think it's going to happen. Wanted to float it.
Yeah. So my pushback to that is his stock cannot get higher at this point because he is generationally good and he's generationally young in terms of hitting free agency. And I think that that's an important thing to note as well, where he has this opportunity at longevity that only comes from like pre-arb deals or arbitration extensions. Like I'm talking about Francisco Lindor, who signed it when he was 28 years old, I think.
Sounds right.
I think it was 28 years old. So he hasn't beat by 2 years. The 13-year deal that we're talking about is Fernando Tatis Jr., who signed that when he was 22 years old, 23 years old. So we're talking about a guy that falls in between the age of when guys sign their pre-arb extensions and guys that are signing those forever my career extensions. So he has this opportunity to play the long game where it's like, you need to give me a lot of years because I have a lot of years ahead of me in my baseball career and I want a shit ton of money. Frankly, I don't know if Juan Soto's game, especially defensively, gets to a point where we're talking about him as a $500 million player 5 years from now.
Yeah.
I think like this is your opportunity to cash in on the biggest deal that we've ever seen for a non-Ohtani.
I agree with you. I was just curious if he had that much faith in himself where he thinks that, all right, 14 years, 630 or 6 years, 300 and then 10 for 5. And I ultimately get 800. That's how I was sort of going about it in my head, but I agree. I think it's going to be this type of deal. I think this is one of those deals where he signs and he's never entering free agency ever again in that sense, unless there's opt-outs. I don't know.
If I'm Juan Soto, I'm just saying, give me all the money you possibly can right now.
I would do as well.
Let's break the bank in 2024, 2025.
Yeah.
So next guy that we got to talk about, Corbin Burnes, top pitcher on the market. That is consensus. I'll tell you right now, I think that there are two clear suitors for top flight starting pitchers. I think that the Boston Red Sox and the New York Mets are the two clear suitors for top flight starting pitching. I think that there are teams that are going to entertain this and they're going to run the price up. I think San Francisco falls into that bucket. I think the Yankees are actually going to fall into that bucket. I think the Dodgers are going to fall into that bucket because they always participate in the run the price up game. I do think that the Tigers are going to run a bit of a price up on some of these guys. But I do think at the end of the day, when I look at a Corbin Burnes and a Blake Snell, I think one of them is going to be a Red Sox and one of them is going to be a New York Met.
So funny. Wait, just before you continue, I don't have either of those teams for Snell or Corbin Burnes, which is
Fascinating.
interesting because I kind of view it in a different light. My only question, and if you want to continue, of course, I just had why the Red Sox being the team to spend a bunch of money in this offseason? Like, what evidence do we have to support that even this new ownership, or not the new ownership group, the John Henry ownership group, combined with his GM, are big time spenders in the free agency market, where I mostly view them now as Craig Breslow and company fishing in the 2, 3, 4 year deal guys, finding their favorites, and then almost re-entering that arm into the market with new stuff and really showing off their pitching lab. I just don't see them spending that much money.
I think we're going on now, what, 4 years based on all the Sale injuries? We're going on 4 years on the Boston Red Sox lacking an ace. And I think that the Boston Red Sox, like John Henry, needs to understand, and I know Craig Breslow understands, that the Boston Red Sox, with Roman Anthony knocking on the door, with Kyle Teal, Marcelo Meyer, Christian Campbell all knocking on the door, with Rafaela there and extended, with Casas there and, possibly the biggest trade chip that we have in baseball right now. Like, they have an opportunity to strike while the iron's hot, and that offense is like flat out good. I think going into 2025, that offense is going to be legit good.
Definitely.
You need an ace to front a whole bunch of threes, and we look at that rotation, and it's like it's a whole bunch of three starters. Like they just extended the qualifying offer to Pivetta. Tanner Houck was an all-star. Okay, who's the leader? And like I do think that Craig Breslow, and he will make it known to John Henry, like it's really important to have that frontline guy that we give an 8-year deal. I think Corbin Burnes is going to be a Boston Red Sox. I think that they've been waiting to deploy the whole sleeping giant thing. I think they've been waiting to throw the money at somebody that's worthy. And Burnes has proven consistent and frankly worthy of getting paid like an ace.
And also, I like the fit too because Burnes a little bit of AL East experience
Yeah,
too.
so I was a little disincentivized by the Mets, and I don't know if there's any validity to this, but remember his arbitration with the Brewers.
Yeah.
Remember who was in charge of all that? Like
Oh, I
David Stearns
remember.
was there. Like I just wonder if that bridge is a little burnt at this point. And I would love to see the Mets pay Corbin Burnes, but like, does Burnes want Stearns to be his boss's boss? I'm not sure.
Maybe the money won't matter, right? If the Mets
Yeah,
just
and
offer the
maybe they have a
most.
good relationship. I
Who
just couldn't
knows?
find anything written, and I just know that Burnes was pissed. And if you're going to be pissed at the Brewers front office in 2023, the beginning of the 23 season, like you were pissed at David Stearns. Like that's just how it worked.
I agree with that. And I don't think he's going to either the Mets or the Red Sox because I am committed to this. And maybe the Red Sox proved me wrong. I just think they kind of have found a little bit of a lane here with how good their pitching development showed in 1 year this year, that they're going to go after the guys because we have a lot of pitchers that we're going to get to that I could totally see the Red Sox going in and getting. Then maybe they get multiple. And their idea is, well, we don't have that frontline ace that we're spending $30 million a year on, but we have 6 guys who we think can all compete against those aces on any given day, and we
Yeah.
can get the most out of them. That's
Yeah.
just how I feel they're going to operate on the pitching side, Jack. Just
Yeah.
on the pitchings in the starting pitching side right now.
Fair.
Because I don't know if it's like, all right, we're going to spend $30 million on an ace. Like now we're there. I don't know if they're now there because of that. So that's why I stayed away from the Red Sox. I even stayed away with the Mets. I was thinking about the same things with Stearns. And I was like, all right, I think there's going to be another team. And if we're talking about teams that have been trying to throw money at free agents and nobody's really accepting them, but now they just got rid of Farhan Zaidi, I think Corbin Burnes is the San Francisco Giant.
Okay.
I think it makes a lot of sense here too, right? The Giants are a team that really lacks pitching. I mean, really, really lacks pitching outside of Logan Webb. There's not a lot of arms that you feel totally comfortable in. Now they have, Kyle Harrison, of course, coming up, young left-handed pitcher. They have some pieces there, but they don't have a legit guy. And I don't know how
You
the
don't think
Giants.
Webb is the legit guy?
No, beyond Webb, excuse me.
Okay,
I
beyond
meant
Webb.
some of my words.
Okay.
Beyond Webb. Like they don't have that second, third,
Yeah,
fourth guy who
fair.
I feel really, really good about. I don't know how they can see the Dodgers loading up on pitching, the Padres loading up on pitching and say, hey, we can compete here because they see how good those lineups are. Hey, we can compete here with Webb and options.
Yeah.
I don't see that. But I do see Corbin Burnes being that kind of perfect guy for them to say, all right, this is the big fish that we have. We have Burnes and Logan Webb, where in a short series, we can go up and beat anybody with those two guys. And then filling in the margins with some smaller moves offensively. I think that's the way for the Giants to go. So I have Corbin Burnes going to the Giants for 7 years, $210 million. I used Aaron Nola as somewhat of a comp.
Yeah.
Signed at the same age for 7 for 177. I think Burnes is a better pitcher. So at 30 million per over 7, that felt right to me.
I think that's a good guess, and I do think that this guy is a $200 million pitcher.
I think so
do
too.
like that, and like I could say, well, I think it's going to be 206. No, I think you're pretty spot on with that.
Yeah,
So
I did more round numbers. Like I was like, oh, I could do 29.4. I was like,
I prefer
for
that.
210 feels good.
I prefer you getting like he's going to get $217 million, and there's going to be a vesting option at whatever.
They're
Like
deferring the last 7. Actually,
Yes.
I wrote that down. It's 7 for 210, deferring 7 million, 1 million per year.
It's going in an escrow account. Yeah, exactly. Yes. So you nailed it. Those are the two big fish. We're going to get to the next echelon of free agent in a moment. Before that, our first break. Jump the gun. You and Aram are aligned. Aram has Corbin Burnes as a San Francisco Giant. So you guys are 2 for 2 on matching at this point. Blake Snell. I don't love him. I'll be honest. I think that's been pretty well documented.
You're like, he should do a 1+1 forever.
Yeah, he should just keep doing. He should be the LeBron of baseball. I laid out my reasoning. I think that there are 2 main suitors. I think that one of them is going to go to one team. The other is going to go to the other. I have Corbin Burnes going to the Red Sox. I do think Blake Snell is going to sign with the New York Mets.
I don't. I think he's going to sign with a Mets rival. I think he's going to Atlanta.
Huh. Why?
5 years, 125. So we have Fried, right? We're going to talk about Fried in a little bit. I have Fried leaving. And now I look at the Braves rotation and I look at, all right, you got Sale there. You got Reynaldo Lopez there. And you have Spencer Schwellenbach. If you go on Fangraphs, it's like Griffin Canning and Ian Anderson going 4-5.
Well, remember, Strider is off the Braves.
That's what I was about to say. So Strider then will come back. But I would like another dominant pitcher in this rotation. I think if the Braves really want to compete here after losing Fried, right? Fried's been so good for them over the years. Losing his production is enormous. They have to be in the big fish market when it comes to starting pitchers here. Because with a lot of the guys that they have after Sale, a lot of them have question marks. Even Chris Sale, right? He's coming off an amazing year. Does he replicate that? At 36, maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't. Reynaldo Lopez, does he replicate this again? History and the underlying metrics would say that he doesn't. He's still a very good pitcher, but Spencer Schwellenbach, I think he actually is going to be awesome. But other people who aren't as in on Schwellenbach might say, he's a rookie. Let's see him do it again, right? Second year, let's see it.
Right.
And then Strider coming back from an injury. Where with Blake Snell, you are kind of buying into the upper echelon here. Because with the Braves right now, with their rotation as constructed, there is a lot of high-end probabilities and a lot of low-end probabilities. Mm-hmm. So if I'm the Braves, I almost want to then buy in on a Blake Snell. And if those high probabilities hit, this could be the best rotation in baseball by a very large margin. And I still think that Blake Snell has proven at this point, like his worst starts are the ones where he walks a lot of guys. But still, the batting average against is always going to be elite.
Always.
I think the Braves are also looking for some more big-time pitchers. And I think Blake Snell, in big spots, has proven that he is legit. So at 5 years, $125 million, I think he's going to be cheaper than Fried, but could end up being, at least next year, potentially a better option than Fried. So that's where I see them going.
So can you say that total money again? 5 years.
5 years, 125. So we're dealing at 25 per. He signed his other deal for a little bit over 30, but it was a much obviously shorter term deal. I think if he's looking for a longer term, a 5-year deal, I think this is about where it's going to land. But again, I'm not super confident in it, but it felt right based on the market at hand.
That feels good. I would actually like, as weird as it sounds,
It's more.
no, 4 for 120 as opposed to 5 for 125. And I
I think it's
know,
going to look somewhere like that, though, like in this
yeah,
range
in
we're
that
talking
25
about.
to 30 range, like
Yeah,
I'm
4 or
talking
5
30 million
years.
per, and you're talking 25 per.
You know, almost in my head, the reason I got to 5 for 125 is I feel like those 4-year 120 deals are going to be out there. And someone's like,
And
well, we'll pay you
he
later
wants a fifth
AV
year.
and we'll give
Yeah.
you that 5th year at 125.
And yeah, I could see that.
And
So,
AA steps in and does something like that. Like that just,
right.
that's
And
how it felt.
the $5 million is going to the Atlanta Braves Foundation.
Oh, yeah. He won't see that money.
No,
But
it's 5 for 120. Like you're making the same, you're making the
no,
same, you're just getting the fifth year.
it's 5 for 12.
Yeah.
The zeros are going to the Braves Foundation.
Yes, exactly. Um, Alex Bregman is
Wait,
the
what
next.
did
By the
who
way,
Arm have for Blitz Snell?
arm on Snell, the Boston Red Sox.
Interesting. Okay, so
So
he
he's
has him going to
along.
Boston.
I bet he's thinking in a similar way to me, where it's like they're going to deploy at some point, and they do need a frontline guy in front of all these mid rotations.
I think you're too centered on the Mets and Red Sox being the big. I think there's like
That's fine.
7 potential big fishes to get these aces.
I think so. I just feel like those two are going to pony up beyond everybody else.
I can't buy the Red Sox.
I get
can't
it.
buy
I
it
get
yet.
it. There's
Yeah.
there's nothing there. Like there's no precedent to this in terms
Yeah.
of the recent future or the recent past. So I totally understand where you're coming from. Alex Bregman is a guy that probably walking from the Houston Astros, and I know that they gave him the standing O at the end of the regular season. I have Alex Bregman going to the Toronto Blue Jays. Really?
No way. I thought that
Really?
was going to be a complete. You look at me like my eyes are crossed. Aram has no idea what I'm talking about. I think it's a perfect fit.
Cool. I think so too. And I think Alex Bregman screams last ditch effort from Ross Atkins.
Yes. And he screams, I'm just taking the most money.
Yeah.
And the Blue Jays are like, this is our only chance. Because I'm looking at the Blue Jays right now and I'm saying, I feel okay about the rotation going into the year. They could use some upgrades. But overall, I feel okay with the arms that they currently have. So I think it's going to be they're going to make a push on this offense because the offense really, I mean, there were some young guys who came up and played decent baseball. But when I looked at the Blue Jays, like I was really worried about the offense. And I'm looking at their current third base situation. I mean, Ernie Clement is what Fangraphs has him slotted at now. I know there will be a couple of different options there, but I don't really see any prospects coming up to take that. Vladdy can't play first base. That move to third ain't happening. I think it's going to be Bregman. I think you put that bat in this lineup and it makes the most sense. Now, there are a few other teams, right? I think the Mariners make some sense, and we could talk about a few other teams, but
I don't know if the
landed
Mariners
on
are
the
going
Blue
to
Jays
pay
too.
like that.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
There we go. Knuckle bump through the Zoom.
Yeah,
Give it to me.
We're totally aligned on this one. I was going to write down the Mariners because I was like, well, it feels like this is the deal they finally go for the bat. No, why? Just because I want it?
Right. I want it.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to pay 9 figures for a hitter.
I don't think so either. And
Okay.
I think the Blue Jays would. And I'm not saying that this is a bad deal for Toronto.
No.
Like, you're getting a big time bat. This guy has been one of the best third basemen in baseball for a very long time now. You need a spot at third base to be filled by someone like this. You have shown that you're willing to spend the money. All right. We remember the Ohtani sweepstakes. So you have the money.
Yeah.
This makes a ton of sense for the Blue Jays.
Yeah, I think so too. Aram has Philly. And that, yeah,
I know
so
where
it
he's
makes a
coming
lot
from
of
there.
sense because they're moving off Bohm. Like that would be, hey, Alec Bohm, pack your bags. Thank you for your services. We're going to go upgrade, and that is in the form of Alex Bregman.
Love that fit. I think if they do move off Bohm, that will happen.
Yeah.
But my one remaining thing is, first of all, they've given a lot of big contracts to a lot of hitters.
Yeah.
Right? Notably Trey Turner, notably Bryce Harper. You know, what are they going to do with some of these other guys like Bryson Stott and Brandon Marsh? And you can kind of continue to go down the line there.
Yeah.
And if they do move off Bohm, I could definitely see them being it. But I didn't want to say if they move off Bohm, they're the perfect fit. I wanted to go out with a fit who doesn't have a third baseman and is willing to spend money and doesn't have to make additional moves to make that happen. But I totally understand where Arm is coming from.
Yeah, no doubt. What's your contract prediction there?
So for Bregman, I went 6 years, 168.
Ooh,
And I know that doesn't sound like a round number, but it actually equates to 28 million a year.
yeah.
And the comp that I used was Matt Chapman signing at the same age last year for 6 for 151. And I think Bregman just deserves a little bit more than that. But what Chapman gives you that Bregman can't is the defensive acumen. He's a phenomenal defender,
Yeah.
which Bregman just isn't. But I would take Bregman, the hitter, over Chapman, even though Chapman had a great year with San Francisco. But we can't factor that into what the contract was given originally. So
Right.
if we look at WAR totals, they're not that different. I would prefer Bregman, prefer the bat. He's still a good defender. I'm giving him that extra bump there.
I'd go actually a year shorter, to be totally honest with you. I'd go 5 for 140, but like that's just me being conservative. And again, we play this game last
Yeah.
offseason, and I was off by a year, and I was off by $20 million
You
every
got to
time.
just give them, if a player of similar caliber is getting something,
Give them
GMs
more.
and these
Give them
agents are
more.
going to come to the table and say, this guy got this. You're not giving us less.
I understand. I totally get that. Pete Alonso.
Wait.
Yeah.
Where's Arma Bregman going?
No, Philly.
Oh, duh. My bad.
Yeah, I remembered that time.
That a baby.
Now Pete Alonso. I'm going to get this out of the way. Arm can't see him in a uniform that isn't a Mets uniform. I can't see him in a uniform that isn't a Mets uniform. Where are you?
Mets. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
We're all aligned here. What is interesting though is he did turn down, and I read in that Kyler McDaniel article, and I've read this in other places too, turned down 7 for 158. Pete, you ain't getting more than that, dude. Like you're not. I have 5 years, 125, and I thought I was being generous.
Is this not so Nimmo where it's go see what's out there?
Yeah.
And you're going to be kind of disappointed. And we're just going to match that. We'll give you a little bit more because we love you.
Yeah.
But like, okay, you want to go see your suitors? Fine. Just let us know. Like, let us know the deals that are coming in, and we're just going to match it, and we'll be fine.
He's going to go ask for Goldschmidt deals and Freddie Freeman deals, and he's not as good as them. He just isn't. He's a very good player. And right, Mets fans might be hearing this and being like, you guys are too down on Pete Alonso. No, when we've said this before, when we're comparing greatness and we're comparing really good players, you have to be nitpicky. Pete Alonso is not as good as these players. The numbers show it. Anybody who watches baseball can see it too.
So 5 years ago, I would disagree with you. And I would say, look at the homers, look at the RBIs. I'm looking for homers and RBIs from first base. I'm looking for production. And at the end of the day, I do think that is a huge piece of the pie.
Definitely.
I think that run production from Pete Alonso is immensely important. And aside from Judge, I don't know very many run producers that are better than Pete Alonso in this game as we stand right now. Having said that, there are deficiencies that Freddie didn't have, that Goldschmidt, when he signed the deal, didn't have, that Matt Olson didn't have. So now we're getting to that point where Alonso's putting the ball on the ground a lot. And it's like, we understand that now when we might not have when Goldschmidt signed his deal with St. Louis. And I just feel like we knew it. It wasn't as important as it is now. So it almost feels like the modern thinking person in Major League Baseball now is looking at Alonso in a different way than they would have 5 years ago.
Here's how I'm looking at a Pete Alonso. I'm looking at an average first base defense. I'm looking at no speed, no base running. I'm looking at 30 to 35 home runs while batting 250 to 260. And
really
remember,
good player.
This is what we're projecting out. This is not what he has done, because what he has done is 48, 50 home runs before. But in the last couple of seasons, it hasn't been quite like that. So is he now regaining power as he gets older?
Yeah.
It's happened before, but it doesn't happen often.
Right.
So our best educated guess is around that area. What would you pay a 30-year-old first baseman when you just hear those numbers? You'd pay him a good penny, but you wouldn't go crazy with him. Right. So I think the fact that he turned down 7 for 158 is foolish on his part. He's going to test the open market. He's not going to get a lot of love because there's another guy in Christian Walker who's going to take less money and may put up a better season than he would next year.
Yeah.
So he's going to come back and say, yeah, Stearns, Cohen, I always wanted to be a Met. Please, what can I get to stay here? Yeah. And they're going to be like, what was offered? Well, I had some 4-year 100, 5-year 120. We'll give you 5 for 125. Come back, Pete.
Yeah.
And he says yes.
Yeah.
It's still a great deal. I mean,
It's a great
5
deal.
for 125. You're making 9 figures.
Your
I mean, come
great
on.
great grandkids are living a lavish life.
Yeah, I think he's going to have to put his pride aside and say, yeah. I mean, I know I hit that big home run, which is definitely going to help him with the Mets. I don't think it's going to help him with other teams, though. So we'll see.
Yeah. Willy Adames, he hit that big home run against Willy Adames, and that was his last game as a Milwaukee Brewer. I think that's signed, sealed, and delivered at this point. There's one team that makes all the sense in the world for Adames. There's another team that I think makes a lot of sense, but they don't have the budget that this team does. I have him going to the Dodgers. Aram has him going to the Dodgers. Who do you have him going to?
I have him going to the Nationals now. I have him going to the Dodgers too. It's just such a perfect fit. The thing is, like, I can understand the Dodgers saying, yes, we need a shortstop. Do we want Willy Adames? Because Willy Adames is a very good player. He's not an elite player, but he's a very good player. He's a 4 to 5 win player per season at peak, I think. He's going to hit you his 30 home runs. He's going to play good defense. But he's not an amazing player. But the thing is, he's going to get priced like a very, very good player. Right? Dansby, at the same age, signed for 7 for 177. You ready to give Willy Adames 7 for 184 at $26.2 million a year? Because that's probably what he's going to cost. Now, the Dodgers have an endless budget. They need a shortstop. That's why it makes sense. That's why I predicted.
Yeah.
But I just have no idea what Willy Adames' market is truly going to look like.
Yeah, so fair. I do think that this is the best of the rest when it comes to who the Dodgers are going to pay. They just paid $700 million for Ohtani. They just paid $325 for Yamamoto. They're the Dodgers. We like to think that they have unlimited money, but at some point, like, you're going to look at a name like a Gunnar Henderson, and he can't be a Dodger because you're running out of money at that point in Los Angeles. Like,
Are
somebody
they,
else is
They're paying Shohei $2 million a year.
I don't know. I don't, know.
know.
But I'm just saying, like, I'm looking at the war leaders among shortstops this year. Bobby Witt Jr., he's a Royal.
Yep.
Gunnar Henderson is going to hit the open market. Can you afford Gunnar Henderson? I have no idea. Francisco Lindor is a New York Met.
Yep.
Ellie De La Cruz. Are you going to be able to afford Ellie De La Cruz when he hits the open market?
Maybe you
By the
trade
way,
him
you're
if you're the
4
Reds.
years away.
Maybe you trade him if you're the
Maybe
Reds.
you trade him. Maybe you trade him to the Dodgers and you get Dalton Rushing and Nick Frasso and you call it a day. That's about it, to be honest with you. Like, Adames is now 5th in WAR among shortstops this year. Corey Seager is a Ranger. Mookie Betts is on your team. He comes up in the shortstop query because he played there a couple times.
That's bullshit.
Dansby Swanson is a Cub. Trey Turner is a Philly. Ezekiel Tovar is a Rocky. Mason Wynn is 6 years away. O'Neal Cruz plays center now. Zach Neto is 4 years away. So, like, you're running into all of this where over the next 4 or 5 years, this is the only guy that makes sense for you to pay.
I mean, what if they are waiting for Gunnar? That's a scary thought.
That's a really scary thought.
Actually, you're an asshole. Why'd you put that thought in my head? Now I'm never going to be able to stop thinking about it.
I know. I'm sorry.
They have a secret plan. We're just waiting for Gunnar. Okay, Orioles, pay him. I dare you.
Yeah, I dare you.
Oh no, Friedman's probably in his office with a freaking like a glass of potion and just like swirling it and thinking about Gunnar. Oh,
he's doing the thing from Get Out. He's got the teacup and he's bouncing the spoon off the sides of the teacup and Get Out.
This is dangerous.
So Adames to the Dodgers, I think, is the right answer.
Adames has to go to the Dodgers, so Gunnar never goes there.
Yeah, exactly. It's better for baseball if Willy Adames goes to the Dodgers. Let's get that out of the way.
Where else? What was that other team that you thought of?
San Francisco. I think that's the other team. But we're not doing Ha-Seong Kim on this episode. Yeah. I think Adames is a Dodger and Ha-Seong Kim is a Giant.
You don't think? I mean, maybe I bought into Tyler Fitzgerald too much. You think that's?
I think Tyler Fitzgerald can play second. I think he can be.
They're going to try that though. You don't think they're just going to try like Tyler Fitzgerald's our guy?
I don't think they should. I think they should get Kim and have Kim and Chapman on the left side, and that'll be awesome.
That's elite. I agree. I wonder if they're okay with Tyler Fitzgerald. I mean, he was great.
The Giants shouldn't be okay. Like, they just paid Logan Webb $90 million. They're going to pay a pitcher, like we're talking about. So it's like, go get a shortstop.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I think that they're going to put together a competitive offer for Adames. The Dodgers are going to match it. Adames is going to choose the Dodgers, and Kim is going to be a Giant. Remind me of the contract prediction you have for Adames.
So I had 7 for 184 using the Dansby comp.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think so.
But also, I could see Willy Adames signing for like 250, and I also could see him sign for like 130. I have no idea how teams are going to value him.
I think Dansby as a starting block is very good.
Yeah,
So,
I think, but I'm really not confident in it.
yeah. Again, all three of us had the Dodgers for Willy Adames. Now we go to Tony Taters. Anthony Santander is coming off of an excellent season from a power production standpoint. Santander had what, 42 home runs, 44 home runs?
Yeah.
He was amazing. It was the most home runs by a switch hitter since Beltran. I think I have that right.
That's wild. You might be right. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like that's the number. That's the nugget. But Anthony Santander hits the open market. There are obviously some defensive questions as he gets older. I like this shout from Aram. He's got the Royals as the fit for Santander. And I think a veteran power bat would be awesome for Kansas City. And Santander would be a great fit there. I'll just tell you, I think the Giants could make a lot of sense too. I have the Giants as the one signing Santander, but I do like the Royals shout.
Okay, so Arm and I were on the same wavelength. I picked another power outfielder we're about to talk about going to the Royals.
Yeah.
There's one team. This one team had 38 home runs this year from their outfield. It was the lowest in Major League Baseball. The St. Louis Cardinals.
Whoa.
I really like the fit here because if I'm looking at their current outfield, how it's constructed, you have Lars Nootbaar, who can't really stay healthy, but is a good player. But it's just, can we rely on you to play 162, Nootbaar? I don't know. But he's still obviously a part of their outfield for the future.
Yeah.
Is Jordan Walker an outfielder? Is he going to move to third base? What are you going to do with him?
They haven't moved to first base.
Maybe. They haven't decided what they're going to do with him. So I can't say, okay, he's an outfielder.
Yeah.
Then who? Dylan Carlson is gone. Tyler O'Neill is gone, right? All the guys are gone now. So it's now Victor Scott, Michael Ciani. How are you supposed to compete with that outfield as your offense? Anthony Santander. Just get him in there, get that big power bat. Because I'm also thinking the outfield has no power. Does the infield have power? Nolan Arenado's power, he only had 16 home runs.
Yeah.
Paul Goldschmidt's not that same power guy. Mason
and he's
Wynn
also
is not
there. Like, he's not going to be.
Exactly. Mason Wynn is not known as the power guy. Brendan Donovan playing second is not a power guy. Wilson Contreras, I guess, so he's your power bat. You need an influx of just homers. I need homers here, right? Teoscar's a great hitter. There's other great hitters that also have power. I need taters in St. Louis. 4 years, $80 million for taters in St. Louis.
If they're not leaning into the Heimblum succession plan fully and they're not just like tearing it down and getting ready for 2027 and beyond, like
could be that.
I think that makes a ton of sense. But I frankly, I think if Sonny Gray is on the team on opening day 2025, Anthony Santander makes sense. If Sonny Gray is not on the team on opening day 25, I don't think Santander makes sense.
And of all the free agents we've done, that's their Sonny Gray deal. I understand the Cardinals. I've been bitching about the Cardinals since we started Project the Plate. I know exactly who they are. What I think they will do is have the 4-year, $80 million contract out there. And who would, in my mind, did it feel like it made the most sense for?
Santander.
The power bat.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe they don't end up giving that deal at all. But if they do and are able to, I can't think of a better fit for Santander.
How about Teo?
So, Teoscar Hernandez, I have going to the Royals.
Okay.
So I love that fit for Aram. And also, before we just move on quickly, what do you think about 4 years, 80 for Santander? Do you think that's
I think
fair?
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I would not want to pay him more than 4 years. I would not want to pay him more than 20 per.
That's what I thought. Literally, we're on the same wavelength. So for Teo, a little bit older, 3 years, 63, a little bit more AAV. 1 year extra, or excuse me, 1 million extra. So 21 per.
Yeah.
The Royals is such good. You kind of already broke it down. You talked about Arm's wavelength, about getting a power bat, a Royals outfield that really, really needs it. Haven't spent a ton of money.
Adding a vet to the lineup as well. Like we talked about adding a vet in Lugo to that rotation, into that pitching staff. Now you have the opportunity to add a vet to the young lineup.
I think it'll be a little bit cheaper than Teoscar Hernandez or than Anthony Santander. So that's why I went Royals, Teoscar, Cardinals, Santander. but on the same wavelength of the Royals, I think are going to get one of them. But I thought they would just go for the slightly cheaper option. And I thought the Cardinals would want to make the splash with the guy who hit all the homers. But it's not really a big splash. That's how my brain calculated these two.
So can I ask you, who do you value higher this offseason, Santander or Teo? Like if you were handed identical contracts, say both 4 for 75, and both were willing to sign it. I don't think that's the case, but like let's just say both said yes to 4 for 75. You were GM, who do you want?
That question is really, really tough because I think that Teoscar Hernandez, as we sit here today, Tuesday, November 5th, I think is a better player. Or I think I'd rather have him on my team, but it's very, very slim. But then if we're talking about the length of a contract, Santander is 30, Teoscar is 32. So that gives me the edge to Santander because I think the talent gap is very close now. Teoscar being 2 years older. So that's why I went the extra year with Santander. But the reason I went a little bit extra AAV is because I think Teoscar is a slightly better player today.
Yeah, I just think it's funny because like I feel like the vibe around Teo is so much better than the vibe around Santander, and it
World
could
Series
just be a
champion.
Dodger thing. He just won the World Series, and he's got that smile.
Yeah.
Talking about a 32-year-old dude's smile when it
And he
comes to
played
free
great.
agency.
He played
Great.
Yeah.
I think the money makes sense. I like the Royal fit. Arm's got the Tigers. I also like that fit. You could use a veteran bat. That's a fun guy. I also just feel like that marriage between Teoscar Hernandez and the LA Dodgers, and we've heard Dave Roberts talk about it. We've heard Teoscar Hernandez talk about it. We've heard Andrew Friedman talk about it. I just feel like Teo's a Dodger next year, and they're going to find space for him in that lineup.
I think that is actually the most likely scenario.
Yeah.
I think he could definitely be a Dodger. My only thing is rushing in the outfield. Do they want to give him some more run? Maybe Teo and him can both share an outfield. I don't know
I
how
think
that'll
so.
work.
And like Teo gets, or like rushing gets Will Smith off his knees sometimes. I don't know how this is all going to work. But you're right. They could run out of space if you want rushing to be an everyday bat. But I mean, rushing's a better prospect than Andy Pages ever was. But Pages, like, he was essentially phased out because they needed to win a World Series. Like 2025, I still feel like you need to win a World Series.
The Dodgers also might be in the Steinbrenner era, if that makes sense, where your prospects are to be traded.
Yeah.
Unless they are absolute freaks where it's, a Bobby Miller last year. But then look at what happened.
Ryan moving forward. Yeah.
Right. Something like that. But they might be, Dalton Rushing is great. Jose Tapala is great. All these guys are awesome. What are you going to give us for them?
I get it.
That's
that's totally a Steinbrenner.
They might just be at that point now where it's like, we have a great system.
Yeah.
How can we turn these into major leaguers?
I can see that. All right. Christian Walker is the next one. Walker's a fascinating conversation because he was so good for Arizona over the last few years. He's one of the best defensive first basemen, if not the best defensive first baseman in all of baseball. He walked from Arizona. I just don't think Arizona's even in the cards for Christian Walker, to be totally honest with you.
I think they had their chance to extend him,
and they didn't.
No.
Arm and I are aligned here. We both have him going to Houston and fixing the first base problem. The Abreu thing didn't really work. Singleton was a fine stopgap, but I could totally see Christian Walker as a Houston Astro.
I could definitely see that. Would be a great fit. I do have him going to the Yankees.
Okay.
And maybe that's my bias coming in, but I do think it's an excellent fit.
Yeah, I think it's either him or Ben Rice at this point. And the Yankees want to win a World Series, and I'd prefer to have Christian Walker.
And I think the defensive point that you made is very acute for what the Yankees want. The Yankees have to get better defensively.
Is he going to charge a 50-mile-an-hour ground ball? Is that what we're talking about?
You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Right after all those failed ground balls at first base, but also just around the infield, having a guy who's going to gobble up all the mistakes, all the bad throws from the rest of your infield, while also giving you that big-time power bat too, right? If you're now putting out a lineup with Judge and hopefully Soto and Stanton and Christian Walker, I mean, that's just such a powerful lineup where if they're all hitting, that can win you a World Series because it's just so much power, right? Where they didn't really have that. So I do think that the Yankees are going to get Juan Soto and they're going to get Christian Walker, and then they're going to kind of make some between the margins moves, and that's going to be their offseason.
Do you think they address pitching?
I think I it's just you got Cole, you got Rodon, you got Schmidt, you got Heel. Like these are your guys.
Yeah. You got
You got
Nestor.
Chase Hampton coming up. You still have Stroman.
Yeah.
Right. So they still have. I think they made their bed with this is their pitching. I think they'll go after relievers for sure.
Do you think they bring back Holmes? Actually, save Holmes because we haven't talked about him.
Yeah, we're gonna save.
Not on
We're
this.
gonna do a lot of
Yeah.
relievers, a lot of other guys in a different.
We
episode.
do need a second episode for this, for it's like
Yeah.
the best of the rest. So,
Yeah.
Speaking of Yankees, Gleyber Torres, where's this cat going?
So this is where I think the Mariners step in. This is the Mariners bat that I think makes a lot of sense here. Because I think Gleyber Torres is a solid player. I don't think he's anything worse. I don't think he's anything better. I think he's solid. I think when you're ranking second baseman, he's like 11th or 9th or 12th or he's somewhere in there. When he moved up to the leadoff spot, he was objectively very good. OPS over 800. We saw him hit throughout the playoffs. Still a relatively young guy. Add some power. He's not the best defensively, which doesn't obviously help him when he goes to market. But I think this is where the Mariners make their splashes offensively. To your point, I don't think that they're going after the 9-figure deals. But do I think they potentially could have saw something at the end here with Gleyber and said, you know what, that makes sense on a 3-year, $52 million deal? Is what, or 3 years, 54 at about 18 per on a 3-year deal. That's where I felt was the most reasonable fit. But again, I could hear a lot of different things because I know that the market is going to be very undecided on Gleyber. I'm sure there are going to be people who latch onto that end, and there's also going to be people who latch onto the front half of this season or in other seasons where he hasn't been good defensively. And obviously the comments about I'm not playing third, I'm a second baseman, all those stuff don't sit well with me. I don't think he's going to be a Yankee, but that fit made sense to me. But again, I'm open to hearing other options.
Well, it sucks because I can't present a counterpoint because I too have him going to the Seattle Mariners.
Okay.
This feels like a third time's the charm thing at second base when you failed miserably on Wong and you failed on Polanco. It's like, okay, if Gleyber Torres doesn't work, then we might just be cursed at second base. You could have thrown me any number of years for any dollar amount, and I would have said, yeah, I guess. I have no idea how to value Gleyber Torres.
Such a hard market to price on a guy because he's former top prospect, came up as a shortstop, hit a ton of home runs, mostly against the Orioles with juice balls. Then he has a couple of mediocre seasons. And then at the end there, right before he's about to go on the open market, he ends the year very, very strong. Did he figure something out? That's for the teams to decide. Yeah. Maybe he didn't, and he was getting lucky that entire time. Again, that's for the teams to decide. So could he be a weird 4 years, $72 million guy? Sure. Could he
would make
but also, could he also be a 2 for 24 guy?
He could.
He could. Right? So I don't know what teams are going to do with him. He's a very tough guy to price, and it felt like the Mariners would come in here and say, we're going to meet in the middle here, and we think this is a good offer. Nobody's going to go above it.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Split the difference.
Where'd Arm have?
Arm at Toronto.
Kind of along the lines of our Bregman note.
Yeah. And just a cheaper version of the whole Bregman thing.
I feel like they have more options at second. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, like Spencer Horwitz was playing second base and like, oh, good.
I think Will Wagner was too.
It feels like they do have more at second base. I'm with you. Although Gleyber may just swallow his pride and try to move to third base.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, who knows what's going to happen there? But
new organization, new me.
I understand where Arm's going there with the Toronto thing. We're aligned with the Bregman thing. We just think they'll go crazier than a Gleyber.
Exactly. All right, we are going to hit some pitchers to wrap. Before that, we will take one final break. First of the pitchers that we got to talk about that are not Corbin Burnes or Blake Snell. Max Fried, the lefty, has been in Atlanta. He was drafted by San Diego. He was traded to Atlanta, and he has been very good for the Atlanta Braves. He's dealt with injury, but when he's been on the mound, he has been an all-star caliber pitcher. Max Fried is from Southern California. I'll make this short and sweet. I saw the thing that he went to dinner with a bunch of people last night, like Mookie, Freddie, Jack Flaherty, all that. Fried feels like a Dodger to me. Like he's gonna get a lot of money from the Los Angeles Dodgers. Are you there too?
Exactly where I'm at.
Yeah. Okay.
6 years, 180, 30 million
Wow.
per.
You think he's a $30 million pitcher over 6 years?
So I
You see that
didn't.
math that I just did there?
So I didn't, Jack. Like I didn't. And then what am I supposed to say to this? So I'm going to run you through these years. 2020. I mean, fully healthy year, it's 2020. Pitched to a 2.25 ERA. 2021, he threw 165 innings to a 3.04. 2023 throws 185 innings to a 2.48. Yeah, he's injured in 2023, but when he did pitch, he had a 2.55. Then last year, mostly healthy, 174 innings to a 3.25. High ground ball rate, putting up the WAR, striking out guys, shown it in the postseason. But I agree with you. There's something there that doesn't make me put him into the 6-year 180 conversation. But I don't
know
care
what it
what I
is.
think.
Yeah.
It's the numbers, and the market is going to give him a lot of money, and deservedly so, even though he is 30. So I priced that in, but I think he's a better pitcher than Aaron Nola, and that's what I keep going off of.
You know what I think it is that makes me think that he's not an $180 million pitcher is the facial hair. Like it looks like he's the eighth grader that learned he can grow a mustache and he just kind of kept it.
But he's also a
I'm out
dog.
on not on the wispy stuff, but yeah,
He's a
he is a
dog.
dog. So
He's a
you and
dog.
I both have Dodgers arm as Cubs. And
Love that.
would
Another lefty for the Cubs? Steal
that's what I was
Imanaga?
thinking
Yeah, no
too.
way.
That's what I was thinking as well, I will say. But at the end of the day, like left or right might not matter as long as you're good.
I can already hear Arm be like, what? So they're not going to sign a guy because he throws with the same arm as like another guys in the
Right.
rotation. I'd be like, okay, I get that, but I still believe it. I don't think that Fried's the guy. The reason I can understand, though,
Yeah.
what happens in Wrigley? The wind starts blowing out.
Yeah.
What does Max Fried do? Keep the ball on the ground better than most pitchers. So I get that.
Yeah.
But I also get the Southern California connection. I also get the same high school as Jack Flaherty and Lucas Giolito and all these guys, Harvard Westlake.
Yeah.
I think they all wanted to be Dodgers when they were growing up.
No
and when
doubt.
Fried signs his last deal, maybe he'd even take less to go to the Dodgers.
No doubt.
But the thing is with the Dodgers, what we're talking about, I can already hear fans. Why would they sign another pitcher? Yamamoto, Glasnow, Ohtani, Bobby Miller, Gavin Stone, Dustin
Kershaw.
May, Kershaw. There's so many. What do the Dodgers deal with the same thing by the time we get to October? Injuries.
They're all hurt.
They got to still sign one. And Fried feels like the perfect fit.
And why not just go 6-man rotation on opening day? Like,
Why not?
Just do it. You have a lot of guys that you would love to conserve. Ohtani getting another day of rest, and Yamamoto getting another day of rest, and Kershaw getting another day of rest. Like, why not?
I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think it's more likely they sign Fried than Adames. I don't know why. I don't think they end up getting Adames, even though I have no evidence to back up that claim. And I predicted him. Yeah. And I predicted him to the Dodgers, but I don't believe it. I just don't think. Like,
agree to disagree on that front.
Yeah.
But I do see a very high likelihood that Max Fried is an LA Dodger. Guy that just finished the 2024 season as an LA Dodger, Jack Flaherty. I have him staying in the state. Arm has him staying in the state. Do you have him staying in the state?
I have him staying in the state.
So Arm has him going to the Burbs and as an LA Angel. Because the Angels spend.
So do I.
Okay.
I'm so glad Arm and I are aligned. As soon as I saw the quote, I can't leave this place. I can't leave this place. I love LA. You want to get paid a bunch of money? Welcome to Anaheim. Welcome to Anaheim. Because it just feels like a very risky profile that teams who are, how do I say this nicely? Smart.
Stay away from.
Okay.
At that price, you stay away from. Yeah.
The shoulder might be an issue here. He's obviously a good pitcher, but I think that we can make better moves within the margins. Artie Moreno and Perry Manassian will say, he was good. Money. And that may sound mean, But unfortunately, I think that's going to happen. And they'll make a much better reason for why they signed him.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's, oh, you like LA? You pitch good. Angel.
Angel. I understand. And it does make a lot of sense because he's a Southern California guy. I do think that the Giants are going to strike out on Burnes and strike out on Snell and maybe even strike out on Fried. And then Flaherty's just sitting there. It's like, okay, you want to be a San Francisco Giant?
He's like, sure.
Yeah. Logan Webb is the one, like clear cut. And then if you stockpile a Flaherty and a Robbie Ray and a Jordan Hicks and a Kyle Harrison, like that's fine enough with Webb leading it. I don't think it's a World Series winning rotation, but that might be the best the Giants can do this offseason. So I do feel like the Giants will push and push and push, and I hope that they get one of those shoot for the stars guys. But Flaherty feels like a decent fallback.
I think there's an element to Burnes that makes him a Giant, and he will take it from the team that gets a little bit desperate.
He's a Northern California kid. He went to St. Mary's.
I'm also a little worried about his profile, right? If we're getting nitpicky between some of the greats.
Burnes,
a little bit. We can talk about it later, in more depth. But just ending this season, I was thinking to myself, is Corbin Burnes really the legit ace?
I mean, he went 8 innings of 1-run ball in the wild card round
against
Kansas City. But this guy threw 194 innings at a 2.92.
No, yeah, he's very good. I'm just saying,
he's great.
He's
not
great.
very good. He's great.
No, he is great. Right. When I'm talking about nitpicky things, when we're talking about the best players in baseball.
Yeah.
And I do feel like the Giants will just be that team to give more than everybody else and be like, we have to get the ace. Where with Flaherty, that feels like an angel.
Yeah.
Where it's like they never had a chance at Burnes.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, we could sell some tickets getting Jack Flaherty in here.
Yeah.
That was my thinking there.
What do you have the money at?
For Flaherty, almost impossible, but I went 5 for 100.
Oh, yeah, like I hate that. It makes my shoulders tense up.
Hate it. But I wrote 5 for 100 to the Angels, and that felt like exactly what's going to happen. Like, I think I'm going to get one right, and I think it's that exact money for that team because it just makes sense. It's a round number. Artie Moreno is like 100. I like 100.
Yeah.
I like Flaherty. That's just how it feels to me.
I like good pitching. I like $100 million. 5 years. Go.
Good. 100. 5 years. All round numbers. Flaherty, good. Baseball. Angels.
I'm sure Perry speaks in complete sentences. I'm pretty
Perry
positive.
Does. I don't know if Artie does.
Okay, fair. Nathan Eovaldi declined his player option with the Rangers. I know Chris Young, the president of baseball ops, has expressed interest in bringing Eovaldi back to Texas.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have him going back to Texas.
Me neither.
Arm doesn't have him going back to Texas. Arm has him as a New York Yankee. I have him as an Atlanta Brave.
I'm different than both.
Where are you at?
Cub.
Okay.
That's where I think the Cubs go in. I think they get the solid right-hander where if they can make the playoffs, they feel really good about him in a big-time spot. They have the lefties. They have Tyon, who's coming off a great year, but I think they need a Nathan Eovaldi type in this rotation. So that's why, but again, could fit a lot of teams. I could make the same pitch for a lot. That's just where I arrived at. I was like, I really do think the Cubs are getting one of these starters. And I felt that the Cubs were the right fit. Yankees, like I kind of get. I get that one. I mean, he makes sense for anybody in the need of a big-time pitcher, a big-game pitcher.
Yeah.
And the Yankees could use that arm.
Yankees could totally use that. If you can swap out Clark Schmidt, if you can swap out Schmidt in the postseason rotation and swap in Eovaldi.
You just swap in Eovaldi for Heel. Schmidt's
Why?
good.
I thought Heel showed decently well.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. They're both.
Schmidt seemed panicked.
Yeah, we need to have conversations about both of them, to be honest. Like,
I'm
trying to be like, well, maybe. No, I mean, they're
what's
both.
What's the money on a guy that's going to be 35 years old that has already had 2 major elbow surgeries?
I did 2 for 50.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Like he declined the player option at 1.
Yeah.
To get 2. I think it's as simple as that. So I
High
like 2
AAV
for
because
50.
he's still a good pitcher.
I could even see like 2 for 57, 2
Yeah.
for 58, like bump it a little bit more, and that's noticeable. $7 million is noticeable over the course of 2 years.
Definitely.
So
Can you pitch me on the Braves? I kind of get it, but
I just think he's a cheaper version of the pitching depth that we're talking about here, where Atlanta and we laid this out. Arm and I did on the Monday show. Um, Griffin Canning comes back. It's like, okay, is Canning the 5? Like, I see Strider off the internal brace, so he'll be ready for opening day because it was an internal brace. It wasn't Tommy John. Sale off of Cy Young. It'll
Lopez.
be Schwellenbach, Reynaldo Lopez on the rework deal, so that's 4. And then I see this assortment of Bryce Elder, Ian Anderson, Griffin Canning, AJ Smith-Shawver, and Hurston Waldrop. And I see Nathan Eovaldi as this opportunity to cut through the shit.
Yeah.
Just be like, okay, we have a 5. We're good here.
I love
And then
that bet.
if things fall by the wayside health-wise, it's like, okay, you plug in a Canning. You plug in an AJ if he's ready. But like, if I have a front 5 that I can go into opening day with, and I'm like, I don't need to figure out, I don't need to hold auditions for the 5 spot, that's a better case.
I love that fit, and I actually think that's very likely. I guess my thought with the Braves were embarrassing way to end it.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing the Mets, seeing the Phillies, and just being like, we have to get a big time guy.
Yeah.
And Snell, the market still isn't totally right on him. I could see AA being the guy to be like, well, we know the market, and this is what we're giving him.
Right.
But I like the Eovaldi fit a lot. I actually like Eovaldi to the Braves more than I like Eovaldi to the Cubs.
Cool.
Yeah.
I dig that. All right, 2 Mets, and then a wild card to wrap. But the first Met is Sean Manaea.
Mm-hmm.
Sean Manaea, king of the crossfire this year. Like, he has proven to be a guy that can succeed with this look. He can succeed at 90, 91. Arm has him going back to the Mets after declining the player option.
Could see that.
I have this as the Baltimore fit. I think they're seeking consistency, and I think they find consistency with Sean Manaea, and you see him as a Baltimore fit too.
Baltimore. I love the fit. And I also think this is one of those like Mike Elias guys where he's like, oh, I think we can tweak him even more.
Yeah, sure.
Find something like that. So yeah, love the fit with the Orioles. I also look at an Orioles rotation where you're going to lose Burnes, likely. Or maybe they are the team to re-sign Burnes. Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen. But if they let Burnes go, it's Eflin, it's Grayson, and then what?
Yeah.
And you could say, well, they do have a lefty in Trevor Rogers. Orioles fans, is that what we're doing? We're relying on Trevor Rogers this year.
He was a tide by the end of the year.
And we want to win a World Series. We're good with Trevor Rogers? No, we're not good with Trevor Rogers, but we are with a good ass lefty in Sean Manaea at 4 years, $80 million.
Wow. I have no notes.
Makes sense. 20 million per 4 years. I think he's earned it.
I like where I said, wow, like I was going to disagree with you. And then I took just a little pushback from the microphone. I was like, you know what? You're right.
And also that money feels sense for Baltimore where they are spending, but not crazy, but they feel like Manaea could be ace level type pitcher.
Yeah.
Just felt right for Baltimore.
Yeah. 2 more arms here. Other Met is Luis Severino. I have Sevy as a Met. Aram has Sevy as a Met. I think that was a match made in heaven. Where are you?
This is where I come in with the Red Sox.
Okay.
This is in the AL East, right? He's been a Yankee. He's pitched on the East Coast with the Mets.
It would be very funny if he was a Yankee to start and then a Met and a Red Sox.
That would
be awesome.
I would like to see what Breslow does with him. Because I think he made some adjustments with New York, and I wonder if he is a farther reclamation project for a pitching lab like Boston, where he's not going to be that expensive, but you could turn him from a low 4s guy to a mid 3s guy on your team, maybe if that's what they believe in. He's pitching some big games, would still be a legit starter. But again, filling the Red Sox with arms like that makes more sense to me than them spending all the money. But again, that you guys could be right where they go get the big fish. But if they don't, I think this is where Severino ultimately lands.
So counter, Sevy just feels like another one of the guys that the Red Sox have had, and you're just stockpiling 3s. Like
exactly,
Sevy
though.
Does feel like a 3. I know, and I get where you're coming.
Yeah.
Counter is, I feel like they're clamoring for something different.
Maybe.
And this is the opportunity to go get something different this offseason.
Do you kind of see both lanes, how both
I see
lanes
the
kind of make
vision.
sense? Yeah,
I see the
I
vision.
totally see where you're coming from. I don't know if the Red Sox are at the point where they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on free agents. I just don't know if that's where they're at. They should
So
be. I will say they should be,
yeah,
but are they, right? Because we can talk about a lot of teams should, but don't. I just feel like the Red Sox are in that bucket where they should, but don't.
where are you at on the money?
So with Sevy, I went 3 years, 57, 19 per. Felt like that.
Yeah.
It's like a year and $1 million less per year than Manaea,
Yeah.
right? You take off a year and you take off $1 million AAV. That felt like the right spot for Sevy.
I like that. I think it's awesome that he made himself this much money. He went 1 for 13 to 3 for 57, you said?
I said 3 for 57. Does that feel
Yeah.
right?
That does feel right.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Okay, you're nailing these, bub. Okay, last but not least, I find this conversation fascinating.
Me too.
Shane Bieber. Bieber looked like amazing. Bieber looked like a Cy Young contender.
Amazing.
2 turns through, 3
Oh.
turns through.
Oh, I
And
love Shane Bieber.
And then he blows out. He's one of my favorite arms in Major League Baseball. Like, if I were to put together a top 5 in terms of just favorite, like guys that I love, league pass legends, guys that I'm turning on every single one of their starts if I can. Bieber's in the top 5 firmly.
I agree. Maybe not. There's some guys like new enters like Skeens. Maybe
It's
pushes.
Like, for me, it's like Skeens, Skubal,
Yeah.
McClanahan when he's healthy.
Yeah.
And then I think we get to the next echelon of like Bieber, Bueller, Sale, like that kind of thing where I just like love them.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
So,
But regardless, very, very good pitcher.
Yeah.
Very good pitcher. Ace level type pitcher.
when healthy, but
When
he blew
healthy.
out. Aram has him as an Oriole, which is interesting. The Orioles just take on another guy off of elbow surgery.
I can't see the Orioles welcoming on another guy with an injury concern.
I can't see it either. So get dunked on, Aram. Where are you?
Mets.
Okay.
This is where I feel like Dave Stearns has a little bit of a masterclass here, where it's like a 2-year, $58 million deal with opt-outs for Bieber.
It's a lot.
Because it's a lot, but he's elite when healthy.
He is.
So I felt like a short-term deal because I think they miss out on the Soto, so it's still Steve Cohen with tons and tons of money.
Yeah.
And I think they'd feel better about going shorter term with a guy with higher upside than even a Manaea. I mean, if we're talking about upside, Bieber has the same upside as Fried or Burnes. I mean, he's that level of pitcher when he's on.
He is.
So I think the Mets, after having a year of a bunch of threes, are like, let's try Bieber here.
So I'm with you when you're talking Burnes and Fried in terms of upside. I think it shows in a different way because I think people would hear that and immediately they would immediately shiver because they see Bieber at like 90 to 91 with his fastball. The stuff is a little diluted for sure, but the execution's gotten better. Like
it's 80 command.
It's absolutely insane. He's putting it wherever he wants, and the stuff is biting enough.
You know, I'm going to take here. I think he has better command of the strike zone than George Kirby does.
Wow.
I think Kirby throws more strikes.
Yeah.
But when I'm watching pitchers, I don't see anyone with better command within the strike zone than Bieber does. I don't see anyone throwing a 90-mile-an-hour fastball at the top of the zone and then tunneling off, and you're swinging and missing so stupidly on a curveball that doesn't even look that great. Like he's just can throws it where like I watch Hedges set up with him pitching, and you never see him miss the glove ever. But Kirby just throws strikes every time. And he has great command. I think Bieber has the best command in baseball.
I can get behind that take. I do think Cole is up there as well. I think Cole is totally on that level.
Yeah.
Just in terms of like hitting spots and working off every pitch.
I think Ranger Suarez, when he's on, has close to 80 command. I think you throw that wherever he wants.
Wheeler's up there as well if we're talking Phillies. But like the list runs out quick, and I think Bieber is absolutely in that. I think this is a Cub.
Yeah. Similar to what I'm thinking about Eovaldi.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're in the kind of a similar bucket, big game pitcher. I love the Cub fit. Absolutely.
Him, Steele, Shota as a front three is very sexy.
I'm worried if they no, but I mean, to be fair, I gave him Eovaldi, and it's not like Eovaldi doesn't have injury concerns. I wonder if they just say, well, Steele was getting injured, we'll see with Shota. The rest, we need a guy who we think is going to throw all these innings. But again, if you're the Mets, you're expecting Bieber to throw all these innings anyway. You're not.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the Cub fit is better than the Oriole fit.
Cool. And you had 2 for 58?
2 for 58.
Yeah, I think that could be a little expensive just coming off of a major elbow surgery. We're talking about 29 per.
I really thought of it as a 1+1.
Yeah, and like, I don't know. I just feel like you can get a discount on a ramp up year. So I'll go 2 for 48, to be honest.
That's fine.
So,
yeah.
Last thing, real quick. We're talking before it happens, and you're listening to this after it happens, but Lidom tonight, the Dominican Winter League. Did you see this note?
No.
Did you see who's managing against each other tonight?
No.
It's Aguilas, which is on the north side of the DR, against Leones, which is one of the teams in Santo Domingo. The manager of Leones is Albert Pujols. The manager of Aguilas is Yadier Molina.
No way.
Yadier Molina and Albert Pujols are managing against each other in the Dominican Winter League tonight.
That's phenomenal.
It's
Perfect.
amazing.
We got something to watch tonight. Or the country's election of president. No, but
again, most important news in America on Tuesday. Roki Sasaki might be posted. We have no idea.
Roki, Yadier versus Pujols, whoever the president is.
We'll see. Every link you need is in the episode description. Obviously, Peter, do the merch plug. Of course, I'm not worried.
Absolutely. Go get yourself some Just Baseball merch. Look at my hat. Go get yours in the episode description. Best way to support this podcast without spending a dime. Rate and reviewing on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and of course on YouTube too, hitting that subscribe button and the like button. We really appreciate it. We've gotten a lot of new listeners, especially from the playoffs. If you've been enjoying all this coverage, we greatly, greatly appreciate those 5-star reviews. Again, it's so, so helpful to the podcast without spending a dime. And it takes like 4 seconds to just click the 5-star, or if you have a minute, just leaving a written review, some stuff that you enjoyed about this show. And I'm not going to ruin it yet, but the lineup of players that we have to come on this podcast, I think everybody is going to be very, very excited. We're going to load you all up all off season. Jack already laid it out on the Monday episode. We got it all scheduled out 3 days a week, just bangers every time. Just bangers. We are just bangers in the off season. That's what it is. So hopefully you make us a part of your 3 days a week listening, not 5 days a week. For Jack McMullen, I'm Peter Apple. We will see you on Friday. And with that, thank you, everybody.